Welcome to the Failures Knowledge Podcast. I'm your host, Terrell Humphrey, and over the last half a decade, I produced over 893 podcast episodes. And throughout this journey, I've been bringing you along the journey to show you what I was working, was not working, in addition to that, the business that I'm working on building. If you're new to this channel, just know we're talking about my journey, and I'm not just saying for my journey is the end all be all, but what I am saying is that these are the steps that I'm taking and hoping that you can take similar steps to help you along your business or journey as well. So if this is your first time here, welcome. Make sure you got a pen, grab a notebook, because this topic is going to be so important, especially as a business owner. And we're going to get it started today. So first thing first, let me tell you what this topic is going to be about today. I had to shut it down. What did I have to shut it down? I had to shut down the LLCs that I generated a couple years ago. I had to close them down because I wasn't using them. I had to close it down because I'm not doing that business. I had to close it down because for some reason I had those LLCs and I just thought that it was gonna go away. When I had to shut it down, I had to really analyze why I needed to do this. And so this topic is going to be so important because as a business owner, you have to be okay with failure. The stats say, I forgot the exact quote, the exact stat, but it say 97% of business owners fail. And now I'm starting to understand why that number is so big, because there's so many different things that a business owner do not know. Like, it's the lack of education. And from my opinion, from my perspective, from my journey, I believe it's the lack of education that causes the amount of failure. I believe, and it's just an opinion, I would do additional research to confirm that. Nonetheless, let's go ahead and get it started. First thing first, you have to know when to fold. You got to know when to fold up. I digress. See, you have to know when to fold. I'm in this entrepreneurship program at the University of Tampa, Low Center, Entrepreneurship Center, and we had a cohort weekly meeting, and in this meeting, the person who was speaking, that was like, you have to have an end point to your journey. Like you just can't go out and do everything. At some point, you have to have a stopping point. You see, that stopping point is what, hold on. How you draw a stop sign? Hold on. Let me see if I can draw a stop sign right quick. It's a hexagon, so we got 5 sides. So we got this side, that side, this side, that side, that side, and it say stop. You see, you got to know when to stop. You see, when you're in business trying to figure out the business that you're doing, it's okay to take that risk. It's okay to take that calculated risk. It's okay to take that chance. But at some point, the risk that you're taking is not paying off. At some point, the risk that I was taking wasn't paying off, and I had to understand what I was doing. It's easy to start an LLC. All you need to do is go to the Arkansas State, or I'm originally from Little Rock, Arkansas. All you need to do is go to your state secretary to file the LLC. But what the challenge comes from is that when you file the LLC, now you have to worry about the additional costs. Now you have to learn about business. Now I had to learn the additional costs, the business, what I'm going to be selling, the problem I'm going to be solving. You see, back in 2021, when I actually got my first LLC, I got the LLC for a clothing brand. You see, this clothing brand was something that I was excited about. It wasn't the fact, hold on. I'm going to put clothing brand. And I didn't even know what an LLC even was. I did some research and it said that I needed to have an LLC. And throughout that time, what LLC is the meaning of is Limited Liability Corporation, if I'm saying it right. Limited Liability Corporation. Let me just confirm, because that don't sound right. Hold on. That limited liability, hold on. Just to confirm, what does LLC? I had it right. Limited Liability Company. I don't know why that didn't sound right. Anywho, when I went to go start this clothing brand, I had an idea, and with the idea that I had, I was like, "Ooh, okay, hold on. If I want to start this clothing brand, I need some type of like to make it seem like I'm in business, not necessarily as a scam, but I want to be legit. I want to be legit. And when I filed my LLC for my clothing brand right behind me, I filed it because I knew I wanted to get into business. I knew I wanted to make an impact. I knew I wanted to make a difference. Yeah, I didn't know how that difference was going to be made. See, that taught me, and by the way, this is not financial advice. Disclaimer, this is not financial advice. This is not financial channel. This is my journey and the things that I've learned, and I'm just informed or educated about the steps to take to prevent the lessons that I went on. I digress. This clothing brand was something that I started. When I started, I was like, oh, okay, let me go and register with the state. I registered with the state. Once I registered with the state, then like there's so many different things that I did not know. Nonetheless, I had to understand that business is not the business I'm doing today. That business that I started in 2021, I'm not doing the same exact thing. I'm doing something similar, but it's all around media. It's all around podcasts. It's all around production. You see, stopping right here, it's not the end all be all. Hold on. It's not the end all be all. It is a process. You have to be okay with developing your process. You see, when I went through this journey, I knew it was going to be a process. I didn't understand how hard the process was going to be, but I knew it was going to be a journey. I knew it was going to take a risk. I knew I needed to learn a lot of information, but I did not let the lack of unknown stop me from learning what I needed to do. You see, what I learned to do is that I learned how to be a better business owner. Hold on. By the way, I do want to take a moment of silence for all the service members who are currently going overseas to war to protect us. So I'm gonna do a moment of silence right now. Thank you. As a former service member, I was Marine Corps, and just looking at the news and everything that's going on, I want to be sure that I talk about that consistently, so that way we can bring awareness to that and talk about it and really thank our troops, thank everyone that's over there serving the country to make sure they're very protected over here. So when I was in the service, when I was in the Marine Corps, I literally had an idea, and when I had this idea, I wanted to learn more about what I was doing. I can't learn what I'm doing if I'm not doing what I need to learn. You see, it's different to read a book, right? It's different. Let's just say that's page 1. It's different to read a book just as much as it's different to apply the information that's in the book. In 2022, I read 22 books about real estate. And I only closed one transaction because it was something that I wasn't understanding. The people who wrote the book, they took action consistently. Me, who read the book, I took action inconsistently. And so what that taught me is that if you're going to be in business, first thing first, you got to do it every single day. First thing first, you got to be committed to the process. First thing first, you got to learn what you need to do. And then when you learn what you are doing, you do it often. You see, in the previous page, I talked about, hold on. You gotta know. You have to have a stopping point. It's not just because you're stopping doesn't mean you're a failure. Just because you have to pivot doesn't mean you have failed. Just because things are not working in your favor doesn't mean that you won't be successful. What it means is that you have to understand the failure that you just went through. I had to learn the failure that I experienced, and it was just like, man, first thing first, what went right? What went right? Instead of me beating up myself and being hard on myself, I'm like, what did I learn? Throughout the half a decade, what did I learn about business? And what I learned about business is that business is like a puzzle. Business consists of many pieces, and time to learn the pieces. Why is it important? You see, that's important because if I don't put the time, energy, effort to learn what I'm doing, the business that I want to do won't be understood. You see, this past weekend, my wife and I, we was at the Women's Expo with Temple Business Club, and we helped them produce their podcast, Voices of Wind. Shout out to y'all. Y'all did a phenomenal job with the panel, with everything that y'all did at the event. When I was behind the scenes producing the podcast, making sure that the sound audio was good, I tell you this, I found the business that I was in. Instead of beating up myself and being hard on myself that I needed to close down the LLCs, it's more so of, well, yes, you need to close them down because you're not using them no more, because I learned why I didn't need to have them. I just thought that they randomly disappeared. But little did I know, they don't disappear. They stay there until you close them down. You see, I didn't recognize I needed to close them down. So what did I learn? I learned the business that I was in. The business that I started to develop or started to be consistent in was the podcast production. Podcasting becomes easy to me. And I didn't think it's a challenge for everybody else. Nonetheless, as I started to really help others with their podcast, I start to see a transformation. I start to see an evolution. I start to see them elevating. You see, you got to elevate, but before you elevate, you got to know why you're elevating. Hold on. You see, the podcast, the conversation is just one aspect of the podcast production. Everything after the podcast is what makes a difference. It's what makes the podcast. It's the editing, it's the producing, it's the sound, it's the angles, it's the lights. It's so many different factors that goes into podcast production. And when I was doing it, when my wife and I was doing it, we literally was like, oh, this is the production. It made sense in my mind. Like, it went off my mind. Like, oh, wait. This is important. This is a problem that I can solve. This is a problem that I'm currently solving. It's not the fact that the problem that I wasn't solving wasn't a problem. I just didn't know the business name of the podcast or the business that I was in or the industry that I was in. Social media, there's a lot of components. But then when I got more clear behind it, social media became podcasting to me. When there's a podcast, when somebody say podcast, my antennas go off because I instantly look like, what you talking about podcasting for? Because I'm the only one supposed to be talking about podcasting. No, I was just playing. Nonetheless, it's like, man, there's a demand. People, I'm in microeconomics because I'm getting my major in my degree in business management. And I'm in microeconomics, and they talk about supply and demand. What is this supply and demand? You see, the demand is that people want to get their voices out there. The demand is that people want to educate people. The demand is that people want to make an impact. When you make an impact because you're sharing your expertise, the impact is made because you're educating people. It was like, what? I tell you, it was mind-blowing. It was mind-blowing because now I'm no longer doubting myself. I've attempted to do a 90-day challenge for 6 times. And the only challenge that I made some money was the first challenge. I only made $217. But I had to invest back to the business. And now I was around $10 of change. But I was learning the production. I was learning how to help others. I was learning how to solve a problem. I was learning how to be consistent. You see, when you're failing, you're learning. And when you're learning fast. Failure is knowledge because you have to be okay with failure. You see, when you take that risk, you're not just taking that risk for today. You're taking that risk every single day that you wake up. And when you start to see outcome, when you start to see change, when you start to see momentum, you continue to build that. My biggest thing was that when the momentum was being built, I would literally stop doing what I needed to do for that momentum. You call that a rookie mistake because the mistake is stopping the momentum. The mistake is building the momentum back up. The mistake is limiting the success. You see, it's okay that I shut down the business. It's okay that I shut down the LLC because that wasn't a failure. That was a lesson. Failure isn't bad. I had to go through that to learn how to be a better business owner. I cannot be a better business owner without failing. As I watch all these different videos and people who are success, like they have some level of success, I'm wondering, like, how did they always have this success? How did they always accomplish this momentum? How were they always on top? You see, before you get to the top, Dre said you got to start at the bottom. Hold on. What's going on, Weaver? What's going on, Weaver Films? You see, before you get to the top, you got to start at the bottom. But then when you get to the bottom, you got to work your way up. I had to work my way up to the podcast production business because I had to learn what I was doing. I had to learn about sales, had to learn about marketing, had to learn about finances, had to learn about legal, had to learn about teams, had to learn about systems, had to learn about stuff. You see, there's so many pieces of the puzzle, but then when they all come together, you start to understand that the problem that you're solving is much bigger than you expected. It was much bigger than I expected because the problem that I was solving was the problem that I didn't know I needed to solve. Hold on. They say get in business, but when you get in business, they don't tell you it's going to be hard. They don't tell you you're going to fail. They don't tell you it's going to be challenging. When I start to learn from other different people, I'm like, man, there's no way you got all this success. How did you do it? Because I'm trying to figure out my journey. I'm trying to figure out myself. I'm asking the question, how did you do it? And I tell you this, when I start asking the question, what was your biggest failure? These people that I'm interviewing, these entrepreneurs, these business owners that I'm communicating with, they literally have told me that they have failed. You tell me after 893 podcast episodes, a lot of people are not failing? Hold on. You see, before you get to the top, you got to start at the bottom. Because when you start at the bottom, you learn the bottom. You learn the systems. You learn the processes. You learn how to do the business. Hold on. What's going on, everybody on TikTok? I can't see the names that's coming in. But what's going on, everybody on what platform we on right now? Twitch, what's going on? You see, one thing that stops a lot of people from succeeding is that they are not consistent. I wasn't consistent, so I had to really learn and sit back like, why am I not able to be in business or have success of business when I'm not understanding what I'm doing? It was because, I'll tell you why, it was because I was trying to figure out what I was doing. I don't try to be perfect. I go out and get feedback, adjust, change, update, adapt. And as I'm doing that, I start to see a shift. I start to see a change. I start to see growth. You see, I can't grow if I'm not learning. I can't learn if I'm not failing. I can't fail if I'm not trying. So the first point that we just went over is that you got to know when to fold. In other words, you got to know when to stop. You see, there's no limit to stopping. You have to know when it's right to stop for you. This next point I'm going to talk about is the point that my wife and I heard when we was in church yesterday, and it was so simple, but when he said, I was like, what the mess? That's what I needed to hear. He said, hold on, make sure I'm on the right page. He was like, I'm paraphrasing it. Do what you need to do. In other words, if you know you need to do something, go do it. You see, I used another analogy with driving, right? You got lanes on this side, you got lanes on this side, and then you got a solid line, you got another lanes on this side, and another lanes on this side. Okay, why is that important? You see, you got to identify your lane. Identify your lane. When you identify your lane has to be different from everyone else. You can't even see this. Hold on. You can't even see this. You see, you got to identify your lane. When you identify your lane, you understand the problem that you are solving. You see, these right here, these are called lanes. In other words, they are called problems. When you solve a problem, you gotta stay in your lane. I had to learn it's not just about social media marketing. It's not just about advertising. It's not just about podcasting. Well, wait, it is about podcasting because that's the business that I'm doing. Oh, the production of podcasts is a lot complicated than people make it seem. First, you got to understand what you're going to speak about. Second, you got to recognize the problem that you're going to solve. Third, you have to have a process to deliver that message consistently. As I started to understand the problem that I was solving, I became okay with closing down the LLC that I started a couple years ago. I became okay with the failure because in reality, being a part of the 97% of business owners who fail is absolutely okay. Why? Because I got a story to tell. I got experience to gain. I got lessons to share. It's not the fact that I'm a failure. It's more so that I had to learn how to turn that failure into knowledge. See, I did that. You see what I did that? Okay. You see, that process helps me develop. That process helps me grow. That process helps me become a better business owner. But before I become a better business owner, I have to be okay with trial and error. The problem that you are solving, has trial and error. I actually want to interview this person, and I when I was in California, she had opened up a do-rag store, like a do-rag store. For those of you who don't know what a do-rag is since I'm Black African American male, I have waves, right? So when I go to sleep, I put a do-rag on so that way my hair can be laid down, and then when I wake up, my waves are forming. I saw this woman start a business in LA that's a do-rag business, and when I saw that, I literally just watching on social media like, man, that's crazy. It's not a bad idea. I just want to see the process. Okay, you got this facility, you got the product, you got the problem. Okay, let's see. And I don't know how long she was in business, but I saw, in fact, I think I know the name. Hold on. What is the name? Because I'm gonna reach out to her because I want to know, why did you know to shut down? You know what I mean? Like, how did you know that you needed to stop? I hope I can remember this because I don't know if I can remember it. I digress. Anywho, she had this store, and when she had this store, she literally had a grand opening. People was coming in, people was buying, people was shopping there. She literally had momentum. So then one day, while being on social media, I was scrolling, and I saw her post again. When I saw her post again, this time it wasn't a celebration post. It was a we closing down post. And I'm looking at it, I'm like, wait, I thought you just had momentum. Is a long time watcher and rising star in your life. Howard, what's going on, bro? I appreciate you for coming in. It was like instead of celebration, it was closed down. It was like a post closing down the shop. And I'm like, why did she close down? Of course, I can't see that because I'm not communicating with her. Nonetheless, I was like, that's a failure. Hold on, that's a failure. It's not a bad failure, but it's something that if she learned from it, she could she could become a better business owner. I was talking about this like back then. Like I literally was like, man, that's crazy. That's a failure. Like, you literally had celebration. One moment you had celebration, then next that you don't. But then reality kicks in. Of course, I don't know the story, so I'm not talking on her behalf. I'm talking about what I saw. Hold on. Even when you at the top, you can go back to the bottom. You see, failure never stops. You don't go from point A to point B, don't have no more failures. You go from point A to point B and have even more failures. And I was like, oh my goodness. That was a game changer. Hold on. Let me get some water right quick. Hold on. What's going on, y'all, for joining in? I appreciate y'all. Hold on. That blew my mind. The reason why it blew my mind, because I was like, I'm not the only failure that is. I'm not the only person that's trying to change their lives and got some complications. I'm not the only person in my life that's trying to stay in my lane. I'm not the only person in my life that has to face trial and error. You see, you got to learn what you're doing, but in order for you to learn what you're doing, you got to fail at what you're doing. Shout out to Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. When I was just doing that, he was like in a video with What's Your Life's Blueprint. He said, instead of burn, baby, burn, how about we build, baby, build? You got to build something. You got to be okay with the failure because you got to be okay with learning. I started to learn that I had to be okay with failure. Failure is not bad. And when I closed down my LLC, now that I understand that everyone goes through similar process, not the same, but very similar, at some point that failure turns into knowledge. You see, to have a podcast production business, you have to understand everything after the fact, everything after the recording. I had to understand that in order for me to help real estate developers build their brand through podcasting, I had to learn everything that happens after the recording. As I started to do that, hold on. As I started to do that, I started to understand I was becoming a better business owner. The last point that we just talked about, first point, just to recap the points that we talked about, you got to know when to fold. Excuse me. In other words, you got to know when to stop. Know when to stop. In addition to that, know when to pick yourself back up. Ooh, that was a good tie-in. That was a good tie-in right there. You got to know when to pick yourself back up. In fact, that's what the last point is going to be about. Point number 2, you got to do what you need to do. In other words, stay in your lane. Find your lane, stay in that lane, do your lane. Last point that we're going to talk about, this one right here, I'm going to hit this one home. It's like I'm playing baseball trying to hit a home run. Like Jackie Robinson, I'm going to hit it out the park. Point number 3, know when to get back up. You see, sometimes a lot of people be like, Hump, my last name is Humphrey. They be like, Hump, I don't think you are normal. Hold on. They be like, Hump, I don't think you are a human. They was like, I see so much of your work. I see so much of your work ethic. It's like you just don't stop. And I'm like, why I need to stop? I'm literally learning faster. And I'm able to learn faster because I'm doing more. You see, what I started to learn is that I got up quickly. Shout out to the movie Rocky IV, if I'm not mistaken. In the scene when Rocky had got knocked down, he was tired, he was exhausted. His moves wasn't as crisp. He wasn't punching like he needed to. He wasn't flowing like he needed to. You see, his trainer told him that you gotta get back up. It doesn't matter how hard you get hit. It matters that you pick yourself back up. You see, life is going to hit you. Life is going to knock you down. Life is going to throw you off. But as it's throwing you off, you have to be okay with getting back onto path. You see, before you get back onto path, you got to know that life is going to life. And just because it's life, you can always get back up. There's a song called Get Back Up. You got to get back up when you are down. You got to get back up when you are failing. You got to get back up when you are learning, because it's not going to stop at the ground. But what happens is that your confidence starts to build up. When I was in the Marine Corps boot camp, they say stand tall and lean back. In other words, walk with confidence. You gotta walk with confidence to know that this failure is not going to define you. This failure won't change your life. This failure won't make it seem like that you're doing something wrong. Where in reality, what this failure does is this failure encourages you to get back up. Hold on. I've had failure after failure after failure after failure. A little success, just a little, just a little bit. But the failures help me build the success. The failures help me build the impact. The failures help others learn that it's okay to fail. Hold on. You see, this right here, failure is not a punishment. And when I start talking to people that was like that they are afraid to fail, I'm like, why? I'm like, why? Will Ferrell one day was like, why? It's not the fact they're afraid to fail, they're just afraid to be embarrassed. They're afraid to mess up. They're afraid to not figure out what they need to. What this does is that it helps you discover your journey. I remember when I was in middle school and being a young man, I was a young man, we was playing basketball. Like, we was playing basketball in the gym. It was gym time. I literally remember we was playing basketball and the ball was about to go out of bounds. I went running full speed to catch the ball. I dove at the ball. But then when I dove at the ball, there was somebody standing there with a strong knee. And when I dove, I ran into their knee and my two front teeth got pushed back. Once it got pushed back, I was bleeding. Like, I was literally bleeding. So somebody came in and gave me a napkin, so I just held my mouth like this. As I'm walking out, all the kids, mind you, I'm in middle school, every last one of the kids was looking at me disgusted. You see, I didn't even know what was wrong. I didn't even see what was wrong. I just saw blood. Let me tell you something. When I got up, I felt okay. When I got up, I walked and everybody turned their heads. You see, that could have been a form of embarrassment, but it was a form of, I don't know what just happened. You see, sometimes you gotta be delusional with the failure you just experienced. It's not the fact that you don't recognize it. I just didn't know it. And just because I had that moment where I had to go get surgery and they pushed my teeth back up, and then like a couple months after, my brother and I got into it and he punched me and he broke it in the gums. What that taught me is that it taught me how to be confident. Now I'm 12, 13, missing a whole tooth. And I was literally using like the Orbit gum to put in my mouth to replace it as a tooth. But not knowing that people can see that it's gum, that people can see that it's something weird about that. Not knowing that the gum only lasts for so long. Hold on. You see, that embarrassment taught me that failure is okay. Everybody's situation is different, yet everybody's situation is not perceived the same. Embarrassment does not mean you're a failure. Embarrassment means that you are trying. As I shut down the LLC, I'm not a failure. I'm literally trying to build a podcast production business. And it takes moments where the embarrassment has to be felt. Everyone has to look at the failures. Everyone has to talk about, say, oh, look at that. But that's okay. Because eventually, I'll be able to say that I've turned that failure into knowledge. So just to recap everything that we talked about today, point number one is that you have to know when to fold. Sometimes things are going to be working. Sometimes they might not going to be working, but you have to know when to fold, know when to stop. The next point that we talked about is that you have to do what you need to do. When you stay in your lane, figure out the problem, and solve it consistently. This will help you understand the business that you're doing in a consistent manner. Lastly, know when to get back up. Every time you get back up, you have failure after failure after failure after failure. Now we're gonna go back up. Now, shout out to my professor, Dr. Rose. She sent me this picture, and that's why I just thought about it. It's failure after failure after failure after failure. Then we get at the top, you got success because someone there is there to help you. But before you get to the success, you got to go through the failures. So that's what we talked about today. If you are a business owner looking to grow something, to build something, and know that you're not on a journey by yourself, this channel, Failure Knowledge Podcast, talks about failure and how to turn it into knowledge. You're not alone. You're doing everything that you need to do. So be okay with joining a community with Failure's Knowledge to know that you are not alone on your journey. Lastly, let me know your biggest takeaway. Oh, make sure that follow and subscribe button as well. Let me know your biggest takeaway on why shutting down a business could be a good thing and or bad. Let me know in the comments. I love to read it. And one more thing before we go. Okay. Remember this. Don't be afraid to fail, because failure is knowledge, and you never know what that lesson is going to teach you. So I appreciate y'all. And this was a phenomenal one. This was a phenomenal episode. And I'll see y'all on the next, because this one was crazy. Not gonna lie. This one was up there. Because it's about my journey. It's about failure. Haven't achieved the success yet, but it's about the failures after failures after failures after failures. And this was good. This was good right there.